Okay, it's 2 minutes later or something, so let's start. We will get more people coming, and they will come at the back of the room. Let me introduce a few people, first of all. In fact, I'll introduce two other people other than myself, and then even more people. First of all, I would like to introduce you to BCS North London branch. Who is not a BCS member here? Because I believe quite a lot of people are not BCS members here. Okay, well, you have some sheets in front of you, and on the last of those sheets, it's like a set of forms, if you will, including I am interested in joining BCS, I'm interested in helping North London branch. Please keep those in mind and fill them in if you are interested, and then give them to me at the end of the event. There is also information on that sheet about an event coming up. It's actually here and is for our partner organization, which is called ISACA London chapter. And I'm very pleased to have not only the current president of ISACA London chapter here. Would you like to stand up? Current president of ISACA London chapter. He looks like this, yeah. And also a past president of ISACA London chapter, who, she's a past president, so we'll let her stay sitting down. So Ken and Sue, welcome. Who is here as an ISACA London chapter member? And the answer here is about 15 or 20 people. Should be many more, of course, and I invite you to tell your colleagues about it, tell them to come, because the next event on the 7th of December, the details are on that form, and it's actually an ISACA London chapter event held here. This happens to be the venue in the sequence of venues that we're using. So that should be a super event as well. It will be sort of fun as opposed to sort of serious. Just to enhance the fun, we've put these sheets in front of you. Some of them seem to be printed upside down, but never mind. It's a flexible world. It's a world of risk. You are adaptable and you're change managers, so get used to it. All right. I said I'd introduce you to some people. This event is in partnership with some other BCS groups as well. And there are actually 110 BCS groups in all. So NLB, North London branch, is just one of those. Super groups, loads of great things happening, loosely related to the world of IT. Now, in terms of those, there is a group called BCS West London branch. And Altaf, if you'd like to stand up, this is what a chairman of BCS West London branch looks like. This is Altaf. So welcome, Altaf, and thank you for the sponsorship. Good. Also, BCS has a group called Elite. Now, people always think that means elite. It actually used to stand, I think, for effective leadership in technical or technological environments, which is fantastic. That's what we're all into, isn't it? And somebody who's especially into that is she will say she's the vice chair. I call her the chair of BCS Elite. Would you like to just stand up and say hello, Jackie? So this is Jackie. Great. And of course, we do this, as with all our events, in partnership with ISACA London chapter. So welcome to ISACA London chapter members, BCS women members, and everybody else as well. Fantastic. Right. What we have for you tonight is a great show. The great show relates, as you'll have spotted from the title, maybe, Wominspiration. Now, who couldn't figure out what that was about? Excellent. You just passed your IQ test. So we have a number of speakers, and I'm going to introduce them to you one after the other in this sequence. It's going to be a very tight schedule, all the more so because we're running about 10 minutes late. But what I might do is when we get to the brief break, which is scheduled for 7:10, let me ask you what we should do, whether we should just carry on or whatever, yeah? Let's do that. And also, right at the end, 2025, what's next I will ask you. And what's next, you might say, is let's continue the discussion. That's all fine as well. What I do know is that we will have some food and drink for you afterwards. So at that point, I'll ask you which is more important for you. But let's get there a little bit later and start off our event. This is about women in today's business world, specifically in IT environments. Now, what we've done is graded things, if you will, loosely speaking, with a number of women, all of whom I think are role models. They are inspirational, but I'll let you into a secret. It could well be that next time we switch it, and our panel this time are the spectators, and you are the people who are speaking, because you're inspirational as well. Everybody has stories to tell, and that's what I look for in these Wominspiration events. Now, the first of our speakers tonight is labeled as Chloe. Chloe, hello. Now, this is a story of endeavor. She's battled her way from Canary Wharf, fighting her way through the vagaries of the Jubilee line closed, DLR, absolutely jam-packed, and then finally grappling with, how did you get here? Walked. Well, good imagination shown there. Come on up, Chloe. Now, Chloe, I noticed something. You got the same surname as me.
Yes, I do. Well, Jalim is my father.
It was a long time ago. I didn't mean it, but you just have to keep up with your responsibilities. Please join me in welcoming Chloe.
So I've just joined Ernst & Young as a graduate, so I've been there for about 4 months at the moment. And my job title, as you can see, is IT Risk and Assurance. So we look at IT risk, assurance, and also cybersecurity. And Cheryl Martin, who's later speaking today, is one of my very top bosses. And also part of the reason as to why I picked the firm and sort of how I got into it too. So in terms of the organisation and what I do, I've mostly worked on risk assurance and advisory projects for large financial institutions. So that's involved sort of cyber work and also looking at different controls and testing them too. So 4 years ago, I started university at the University of St Andrews in Scotland, and I started my degree with history. So I was really passionate about history, thought that that was sort of the path that I wanted to go down. I was thinking about doing law. Every time my father spoke about IT, I yawned and was like, absolutely not. But yeah, later I know that that was exactly the sort of position and job that I was going to do. So what I was doing when I was studying is I was looking at modern history, and I was particularly interested in the 20th century and how that shaped the world today. So I looked at a lot of modules, especially like sort of looking at the Cold War. I looked at the Middle East too, and looked to see how that shaped conflicts and things that were going on in the world today. Later on, however, I did find it quite difficult to align a specific career to my degree in history. And so being very indecisive, I was really unsure what exactly it is I'd want to do. I also faced what was a very competitive job market and still is. So it was very difficult trying to get internships, trying to get jobs, just basically figuring out what I wanted to do by trying different things out. As you can see, I was completely unsure about what I wanted to do when I grew up. So sort of a slight detour in my degree, I developed an interest in international relations, which was something I was able to do by studying 3 subjects at my university. And through that, I also explored different fields. So I did work placements in law, in residential property development, in IT firms too. And EY was one of the firms that I did a placement in. And that was initially sorted by a week sort of experience to see what the different departments are like, to see what EY was like as an organisation. So through these different experiences, I networked I gained an understanding of what different businesses were like, of what small businesses were like, what large businesses were like, what the law industry was like. And I also developed a basic knowledge of cybersecurity, and that was through ISACA's Cybersecurity Fundamentals exam. So that was a great way of me, especially looking at the job I do now, of seeing what cyber involved. It was something that I hadn't really heard of or explored too much. And so it was a great insight into kind of having a base knowledge. So when I went into my job, I do understand words that are being thrown around. So in terms of tips and sort of tricks of how I sort of progressed and learned what I wanted to do, I think it's really important to think, plan and work hard, and also to share and support others where you can. So in networks like this one, and especially at EY and in the path that I took to get there, I found women's networks really important and really useful to learn from other women, to learn what challenges they'd faced, what opportunities they'd had in their careers too, and to take that on board and see what I wanted to do in the future. So thank you very much.
Do you know, I remember when she was still crawling around the floor. Fantastic. You can see that the theme of this event is going to be women at different career stages. And so Chloe has just joined the business world, and she's still fresh-faced, enthusiastic, all those other things. Shh, don't tell her too much, okay? But likewise, we've got a series of other people who will give inspirational stories using this format, if you don't mind, which is what I do now, what I did at a point in time a while ago, and then what challenges I faced and so on, and what tips I can give to people who are at that stage. Now, I'm going to introduce you to the next speaker in a moment, but let me just firstly ask you, who is at Chloe's stage or earlier? And the answer here is two ladies. Chloe, meet these two ladies here. So let's follow this flow through. And Chloe, would you like to just go and join the other presenters over there? And let me now invite our next presenter is not only at a stage where she's got a small number of years in the work environment. She's actually excellent. I've seen her present and she was great. But she is also from Leeds. Do we need a translator? Yeah, oh my God, Newcastle. Do we need an interpreter or are we
I'm
okay?
going to try and speak slow and brief so you should be able to understand me.
Fantastic. Please join me in welcoming Jade.
Thank you. So good evening, guys. As I said, I've got a bit of a twang. So I'm probably a foreigner in the room tonight, but I will try and speak slow. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to come down and present at this event. My first time doing this sort of public speaking. I'm used to logging into dashboards and data visualization tools and talking about software, and that's where my comfort spot is, and this is very different for me. So yeah, I'm Jade Turley. I've been working at Pan Intelligence for nearly 4 years now, and I came straight out of university with 0 sales experience. Didn't even really know what Pan Intelligence done. I just knew it was software that done pretty pictures that you could drill down on. And what I really loved about Pan Intelligence was my interview process with my mentor, my boss, Sandra. And she really made me feel confident that it was all right to admit that I didn't have any experience and that there was other people who had come for the job interview that had more experience than me. My response was, well, I'll get stuck in anything. You know, I've got that, I'll get stuck in, throw something at me. So I was really able to carve my role at Pan Intelligence. I started, going out on site with Sandra, meeting predominantly men in business, all older men in business. I'm quite young and loud and gobby, so I stuck out like a sore thumb. But what my role now does 3.5 years later is I have took over the Sage channel. I have grew the channel from 3 to currently 37 now. I've got 35 in my slide partners. And I help those businesses take our product to market. So presentations, going out on site, finding out where our product strategically fits into their business plan and where that opportunity is. All stuff that I've never done before. So 4 years ago, I was a very quiet student. I done business management at Leeds, and one of the opportunities in my course was to do a placement year. And I thought, well, what do I want to do? I don't know what I want to do. So I'd done all this research, and then I found this clinical software company called the Phoenix Partnership. Got there, quite a big company, because I thought, oh, I'm going to go up the corporate ladder, and I'm going to be all this big empowering woman, and this is what I want to do. And when I got there, the business was 120 people strong. And after 12 months, it got to 280 members of staff and went international, and it just went boom. And I just thought I would like a little bit more of a voice. So that gave me a really good, kind of leeway to say, definitely software. It changes every single day. You're always learning. But I'd like to work for a smaller company. So, obviously, some of the challenges before I'd done my placement was, well, I don't know what job role I want to go into. So in the clinical software company, I got involved in all teams. And then I realised quite a good talker, so maybe I should go down the sales route. So one of the things that I really wanted to do, and what I thank university for every single day, is actually coming up to me saying, have you thought about doing a placement? Because if I hadn't had 12 months in industry, getting out of bed at 7 a.m. and realising you have to be in the office for 8:30 and work a full day. So that was a shock to the system. But really just being able to say, do you know what, I've got some quite good skills here that I've learned. I've learned to work with people of all ages, people working in different job roles, and actually make a little bit of a name for myself. So obviously working for a really big company, I decided that maybe I needed to start small, have a mentor, have someone that's just going to say it's all right to have an opinion. Don't feel scared if you don't agree with what I'm saying. Speak up. So from that, I joined Pan Intelligence, and I think one of the key things was it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable sometimes. It's okay to say, I don't know. This is all new to me. And one thing I always say is I don't sit there and struggle, always ask for help. Some of the other things I've noticed as well is that I'm quite feisty, which probably is quite good for me. I work with predominantly men. I've had a good few knockbacks. Quite a few times I've gone home and went, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. And I'd get up the next day and I'd ring them back and be like, do you know what? No. I'm coming in to see you and I'm going to show you exactly what I do. And that's my one thing that I could say to anyone. You get knocked down, get back up and go back and prove yourself, but do it 10 times better. So that's probably one of the best things that I've learned about doing my job in Pan Intelligence, and obviously having Zandra to support me. So with that, my tips and tricks: always smile, be approachable. I would like to think that everybody in Pan Intelligence could come and talk to me and I would stop and help them. Any of my business partners should never feel scared to ring me and ask the most ridiculous question. That's what I'm there for them to lean on. When you get new starters in the business, make them a cup of tea, put your arm around them, show them that you care, show them that it's a nice place. Always do that, because people have done that to me. RND still makes me a cup of tea now. Very grateful for that. Very grateful for that. And like I said earlier, don't be afraid to ask. Not everybody's perfect. Not everybody knows what to say or what to do. And sometimes you do mess up. And if you do, my famous phrase, own it. Just say, I don't get this. Can you explain that again? I've really messed up there. Let me take a bit of time out and I'll come back to you and I'll answer that question for you. I just need to go in, ask for a little bit of help. So to finish off, why IT? Well, I've now learned to install and download the software and update it on my own. So I've learned loads. And I love the fact that every single day is different. Every single meeting I go to and whatever presentation, I still get nervous and I'd be really worried if I didn't. So, you're always learning. You meet loads of different personality types. You learn every single meeting I do. From the meeting I had this afternoon, I reflect on maybe how I've came across or how I've explained something. Constantly saying, how can I be a better person? I read a million books. Quite sad. Emotional intelligence is a good one. And finally, I don't like to sit still. I am constantly pushing myself. And tonight, never done this before, so I am a bit nervous. But if you don't push yourself and challenge yourself, you'll never grow. So my advice is you might be really scared, but put yourself in the situation anyways, because people don't know about me and it's nice to share my story. So I think that's everything. And have I stayed within the 7 minutes? I think I have. Thank you.
Well done, Jade. Now, are you resonating with our theme? Does this sound like a good theme to you? Yeah? Great. And you can probably recognize a lot of the messages from your own background and a lot of the tips and so on. I hope you can either share with others or you can think of more tips of your own. Well, we've got more inspiring women to give you their stories in a minute. But what I would just say to you is that you will be able to ask questions later. It's just that because of the timescale, I apologize, but please save questions and we'll have those in the panel session later. Is that all right? Yeah? Great. Okay, well, those were two originally very shy people. And on that same theme, I'm going to introduce you to possibly the shyest person I have ever met. And that is my own colleague in BCS North London branch, our very capable committee member, our events project manager, that's now, who has also got roughly the same sort of experience in terms of years as Jade, but she has been through a very rough, tough learning curve. And I know that because I've known her through that for the last few years. Please join me in welcoming Joy.
Thank you. And I think I'm supposed to start from what I do now, but I'll go from behind. I'd say put yourself in the situation. That's how I landed here. So what I do now, I'm actually working as a support analyst, and I work with an ad tech company. And for now, I think my role is so diverse that I'm not sure exactly how to explain to my mom yet. So I'll try to do that with you and then see if I can do that next month when I see her. So at the moment, I'd say I work with all the teams that make the things that my company own happen. So I work with the engineering team, I work with the product team, I work with the sales team, and I work with those who do the training. And by working with different people, I think my role is seen much more than what it says. But I would still say I'm an engineering support analyst with MediaMat. So at the moment, I do provide technical support for those who use the platform my company provides. And I do lots of projects in product management. That happened only recently because my team decided that I would be the best person to lead a new project. And I'm actually the most junior person in my team. So I'd say I'm grateful for them to actually think that I'm capable of doing that. And at the moment, I'm working on a project which came as a joke. It's just something that developed out of my own frustration with the whole process. And I wanted something different. I wanted to see a more unique way of working. So I decided, why not create a process? And I started a process automation project, which I'm currently working on. And as part of my role, I do work in developing new requirements that based on what I hear from customers. If I understand that customers have complained, I think, well, if they want something, they want something. If we can't provide that, it means that we're not doing what we promised. So as part of my role, I translate business, I translate customers' complaint into new features and requirements for my company. And I'm working on new prototypes as well. So before now, I was usually sitting just like you, very shy, really, really shy, at the back of the room, coming to most of these BCS events and just enjoying the whole event management things. And I used to work as a software engineer as well. So I'd say, looking back at that, it was 2 years ago, but it seemed like a very long time ago. It was a time where I thought, I want to venture into software engineering. I understand that it's much more than development. I know that I can enjoy certain parts of this whole development phase, but not be good at every part of it. So I joined this company, and it was actually a consulting firm and a software solutions company. And I remember during my interview, I was interviewed for a business analyst. And they started going into, well, we think what you have at the moment is more suitable for our software team. Would you like to join that? And I asked the question, like, do you really think that, what exactly am I interviewing for? Is this software engineering or business analyst? So they said, well, we do have both open, but if you're willing to join the software development team, that's fine. And I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity. If the opportunity comes, why not? I'll take it. But the thing is, I'm not someone who wants to spend so much time behind a computer coding. So if you give me the opportunity to explore everything that you currently have within software engineering, fine, I'll go for it. And so they took a chance on me. And I spent 6 months being a software engineer. And during that time, I think I realized that I love analysis. I like to look into things and find how to make them better. I was much better at system analysis and understanding how to build a system from design phase and then pass it on to someone else to do the real work, like code it. But I was meant to do lots of coding, and I thought, this is not for me. So I'm going to move on to something which is totally different. And 6 months later, I moved into my company as an analyst, and I started in a junior role as a platform support analyst. Yeah, it's been a very interesting move, and I'm actually grateful that I did so. For me, I'd say there's so much opportunities out there, but you just need to be willing to learn a lot and challenge yourself, put yourself right there in the middle and accept the challenge. And I believe you can always network outside your current discipline because it might open you to things that you thought are not actually possible. Because for me, IT was never something I saw in advertising. I got into advertising because I was curious about why do I see the ads that I see. And I'm very am pro ad blockers. So I went into this whole interview because I wanted to understand what is going on behind my screen. So I say, if you're curious, stay curious and trust yourself and your skills. Be comfortable with ambiguity. Things are likely to change, so stick to it. Embrace change, because I think that's the best way to grow. And in terms of networking, I usually come here at the time and I meet different people. I'm usually at the back of the room because I enjoy to be there. This is my first time being in front of the room as well. And I guess it takes the challenge to get used to things. So thank you for taking the time to come over here. It was nice meeting you all. And yeah, I think that's what it is.
Tremendous. Thank you very much, Joy. Now, if you want to speak to Joy later, she'll be quivering in a heap in that corner over there. I thought she did really well, didn't you? Okay, well, keeping going with this, diversity is very much something we're talking about as well. And I'm constantly amazed by how good women are in comparison with men in terms of numbers of aspects of multitasking and so on. And our next presenter is very much an example of this. I haven't asked her, but I suspect that this is actually at least her third language. She's lived and worked in different countries. She has explored the challenges of not only getting into IT from something else, but also of learning about different cultures and so on. Please have a quick look at what it says about Julia, like you have been doing with the other presenters, on your sheet, because she too has an amazing background. But right now, I would like to ask Julia to come to the foreground here and tell us a little bit about herself. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Yeah, hello, my name is Julia. So I will also keep the format and tell you a little bit what I'm doing now, and then I jump back what I did before. So right now I work as a sales manager for the UK for a company that developed 2 different tools for the e-commerce sector. And there actually I want to tell you a short story behind it, or also why I do believe, why I love what I'm doing, and why for me it's not actually really work to go to work, but why I really do enjoy every day. And everything started, the company decided 2016 to enter the UK market. So I just came back from abroad. They offered me the job and there was nothing. So we haven't even had one client in the UK market. And I had to face the challenge, okay, how do you build up a market just from zero with nothing? And actually, how high is the probability to fail? And that's one of the things I always stick to, that for me it's okay to fail, but for me it's important that I really always try my best. So in case I fail, I can look back and I can say for myself, okay, Julia, you couldn't have done any better. So in this case, I did the same. I accepted the job, and the first 3 months were just still looking back the hardest up until now. So it really started to cold calling, talking to lots of different people and getting rejected like to 90% of the time, which is pretty tough. So what I learned in this time, it's so important that you are persistent, you believe in what you are doing, and you just keep doing it. You don't give up. And there I'm actually pretty thankful for my father. He always kind of probably pushed me a little bit too much. Like, he did lots of sports. So it's kind of, I think when you do sports, it's with the time you always try to reach your limit. And then you realize when there is a point where you think, okay, you have to stop running and you keep going, then actually you realize after 2-3 minutes, you are at the point where you realize how much more energy you have. And I do believe that's the same no matter if in which area, in which job, which for me at least is always a good way to do also business, just always to try really to go to the maximum. So yeah, I was really lucky and happy, and that's also why for me the UK market, it's not just my market, but it's a baby I saw grow, I saw develop. And it's just really nice to see, looking back, where it was from zero and then suddenly it's like a little baby that is already 2 years old. It just learned already also talking. And I'm curious where it's going to be in 2 or 3 more years. Before that, when I finished the university, I finished my bachelor in global sales and marketing management. And for me, it was clear, okay, I always wanted to live abroad. I lived during my studies in the UK for a couple of months, for 9 months. And also, I did an exchange semester in Mexico. So for me, it was clear, if you want to live abroad, then kind of like follow your dreams, do it now, because now you're independent. So I applied at lots of Austrian companies that had subsidiaries in Mexico, found a great job and had the chance to work there also in sales and project management. which was a really great experience. It was my first job. I learned a lot, but I also had, especially with the different cultures, some challenges based to the language and to cultural differences. One thing, I'm not the most patient person, so for me, kind of life has to be okay. I need to see results. And in Mexico, the way people see time, it's just different. So if a meeting starts at 2 p.m., it's kind of 2:15. And these were kind of challenges where for me it was also important just also to slow down, to see, okay, it's fine if not everything is exactly to the plan. It's fine if we don't make the 10 minutes break and we are a little bit behind. And just to see that also these kind of things actually make life interesting and charming. Yeah, and now to the tips and network. For me in sales, I truly, I'm a typical salesperson. Yes, I love what I'm doing. I tried once to get out of it, I couldn't, but I wouldn't sell my grandmother. And I think it's pretty important that you have certain values, you just stick to it. And I think I'm pretty good in what I'm doing because I really believe in it. So if you love what you do, then also the people feel it just. And also in sales, I think it's really important that you don't just sell, but that every person, especially with the partnership development, matter to you. So they feel, okay, it's not just about she wants to sell something, but it's really about building a partnership, growing together, and that they know and they feel, okay, whatever you are doing or whatever they are doing, kind of, they can count on me. And yeah, as already said, persistence is the key to success. I believe 100% in it. And one of our country manager, he has his TBA rule, so I stole it from him. I really like it. I think it's short and to the point. Think, believe, and act to it, and just stick to it until you get what you want. So no matter how long it takes, if you stick to it, if you believe in it, if you work hard on it, I truly believe that anything is possible. And yeah, no net without work. So if you want to build up a network, if you want to connect with people, if you build up partnerships, especially in IT, I think it's pretty cool because there are so many different people with different characters that come together. And you can learn from every person something new. Yeah, and with my network, so I work a lot with UK agencies in the e-commerce sector. I'm also at lots of conferences and expositions in the UK, and I don't know what I would do without LinkedIn. So, thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Julia. So what I'm going to say is that now we're going to leap through the years, as it were, and go to 3 speakers who have got decades of experience. And I don't know if you've brought get your walking sticks ready, because, again, please read about our next presenter up front, and that's Jackie. We're switching from the corporate world, which we've been talking about until now to quite an extent, to the SME world, the small enterprise world. And Jackie is very much a master of that world, as well as being extremely helpful in a number of other situations. But hey, why should I tell you about Jackie? Please join me in welcoming Jackie Hogan.
Thank you, Dalim. I haven't got quite all that much experience, really, but it is quite a few decades now. As Dalim mentioned, is that I work with SMEs. I work primarily with technology SMEs, and I do a whole range of things. And this is one of the great things about self-employment, because, like some of our previous speakers, I like variety. So I'm a mentor. In fact, mentoring is probably most of what I do. I'm a trainer. I run small workshops. I'm involved in management workshops and leadership workshops as well. I'm a speaker. I hope you're not going to hold that against me this evening. I'm also an avid blogger and I'm an author. I've written 5 books, not all on IT and management, but several certainly in that area. When I say I'm a blogger, I got involved in social media really through one of my clients, and they said, what is this LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter stuff? And I thought, I need to find out about this. So I got involved, and I've now written something like, I think it's 150 blogs, mostly on management and leadership, but also on IT-related issues. I've written, you'll have to go and look at LinkedIn to see them. And I work for myself. My company is called Co-Creative Limited. I set it up in 2003, so it's been going for quite a long time now. And what I do is I help managers and SME business owners walk the path between IT and business. And that means I work with middle and senior level managers in medium-sized and small businesses, and I also work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Now, for anyone who works with SMEs, you'll probably recognise my comment when I say I work with a lot of government grants, because government grants fund a lot of SMEs these days. That's right. Right. So how did I get started in doing this? Well, like most of our speakers this evening, I don't have a degree in computer science. I have a degree in architecture and building. And I'll come back to that because that was important in my career development. So back in the late 70s when I started in IT, as many will remember, you didn't have to have qualifications in computer science. In fact, when I was at school, there wasn't an O-level or a GCSE or even an A-level in computer science or IT or anything of that kind. And my first experience of IT was during my maths A-level, when my maths teacher took a whole bunch of us up to Liverpool University, because I was in Lancashire at the time, and we were introduced to a computer. An IBM 360, in actual fact, for those who remember it. It was behind a glass screen. There were 2 men, because there were no women then, standing behind this glass screen on this platform, because it was all air-conditioned, with white coats on. And we were introduced to them. They were computer operators. Wow, I thought, this is so exciting. But I carried on, and I did my degree in architecture. And back in those days is that there was a very major recession. And to be perfectly frank, I was not especially good at architecture. I did, however, acquire a husband. I still have him. Okay, so it was a question of, what do I do now? So I went to various recruitment agencies, and it was a toss-up. Either I became a trainee programmer or a trainee accountant. And I'm very pleased to say I got offered the job as a trainee programmer first. That was the only reason I went into IT, other than this sort of frisson of excitement that I developed when I was doing my maths A-level. And back in those days, you weren't sent on a training course with a certified provider from Microsoft. In fact, Microsoft pretty much didn't exist then. I was put into an office, an open plan office, with a desk shared by other trainee programmers. And I was given a pile of manuals. And I was said, okay, we'll come back in 4 or 6 weeks when you've read them and you've worked out how to program in PL1 and Basic Assembler. Anyone remember Basic Assembler? Yeah, it's still around. I'm glad to say I didn't use it beyond that job. That was in the city. And I went through a software development career as a software engineer, as we eventually became to be known. And what I found is that I was really quite excited about the whole technical aspect. And I have to be honest, I became a girl geek that first day in that job, and I'm still a girl geek. I have to say I don't still program or code, well, not much anyway. But I learnt about this wonderful thing called CAD/CAM, computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing. And then my degree in architecture suddenly became something of interest to employers, because someone said to me, "Oh, you understand about this graphics stuff, don't you? Oh, you can do pictures." And I said, "Yeah, I'll have a go at that." And then I carried on and I wrote code for a whole variety of different software systems, mainly around car design. I worked on the design of the Scud missile in France. And I also worked on geographic information systems and a whole variety of what was really then just quite a new industry. And along the way, I found that I was not only becoming extremely technical. At one stage, I was actually a mini computer operations systems specialist for the UK, so I knew my code. But I was finding that because people were saying, well, actually, we need someone to go out and install this software, we need someone to go out and talk to customers. Let's ask Jackie, because she can actually string two words together in front of someone who's not a technical person. And what I found is that drew me into project management, still around quite a technical level, into training, because I got involved in running training courses. I used to teach people in Italy to program in Fortran. Anyone remember Fortran? Still around? Yeah, some hands up. I have to say Fortran is one of the most amazing computer languages that I ever learned. But along the way, I learned APL and Lisp and a few others that people will remember. But I was technical. But I found myself increasingly being put in front of customers and speaking about things that were going. And I was looking to how to develop my career at that time. And I asked my bosses, can I get out of this technical silo? Can I start doing other things? And they said, oh, no, you're far too technical. We can't lose you from that. So I decided that the only way I was going to get out of that silo as a technical person was to do an MBA. Now, you might say that was a bit dramatic, but I have to say it was the second best thing I ever did. And what I learnt is that I actually understood quite a lot about how to manage people. And I stepped into my first management role working for a large pharmaceutical company. And then I went into a number of other organisations. And what I found is that what I really liked doing was working with people on the business management technology boundary. Because what I was doing a lot of the time was translating technical concepts into concepts that the business could understand, and then translating business into something that IT people could relate to. So when I was offered the opportunity to take voluntary redundancy from a large IT outsourcing company that I worked for, I jumped at the opportunity. And that was in 2003. And I started up my business, and I've never looked back. I'm not good at buttons on. So what were the opportunities when I started out? Well, first of all, IT was new. It was pre-PCs. I think some of you in the room are old enough to remember the days before we had PCs. And it was simpler. I started out with PL1. Even Basic Assembler was actually not as hard to learn as you might think it was. And what was interesting is that there weren't sort of hundreds of different computer languages. There weren't great layers and different generations of things that sat on top of the code. So you knew the code or you didn't. And it was actually so much easier to get into computing. There were not many computer science training courses around. I did go on to take a postgraduate diploma in actually digital and analog computing. I like technology. And what I also found in terms of the opportunities was, as soon as people learnt that I had an architecture degree, it kind of opened up all sorts of doors in IT for me. And I just absolutely loved being involved in computer-aided design. It was exciting, it was visual, which I think for me was particularly important. I was an eager learner. I'm still an eager learner. And it's one of the reasons why I've become a kind of unofficial social media expert, because I just find it so exciting and interesting. I just can't resist going and finding out new things. For me, the internet has opened a huge door into more knowledge and information that I can use and learn. Doing an MBA. If I tell you that my technical colleagues thought I was crazy when I decided to do that, you wouldn't be wrong. And what I found is that part of the eager learning environment that I liked was that doing an MBA, because I did it part-time with the Open University, as in I did it in my own time with the Open University, it was absolutely wonderful. I was learning all this new stuff about how businesses worked, how people worked, how leadership operated, how management did. And it kind of fitted with one of the other opportunities I have, and that is that I'm ever so slightly maverick. When I was working for an IT outsourcing organisation, which was the last corporate job I had before I started my own business, is that we were short of resources. So I said, well, why don't I get some of these support people to do development? And oh, by the way, we won't do it on the normal timesheet basis. We'll just have module blocks so that people can spend some of their time doing development, sometimes support. And the organisation, and I remember the MD saying to me, "You can't do that." I said, "Watch me." And it worked. And it's now, following when I left, it became the adopted approach for resourcing. And it was because I was prepared to stick my head up above the parapet and try something new that made all the difference. And I have to say, it was huge fun being a bit different. Now, the challenges I had, certainly when I started out, it was a recession. Jobs were hard to come by. The late 70s were pretty hard times. Being female. Now, I hate to play the female card, I have to be honest. But there's no doubt that with one exception, all of the corporates I worked for were pretty much 90% men. The exception was that I went to work for the FI Group, who some of you will remember, and suddenly I was in an environment where more than 60% of the people I was working with were female. And I have to say, it was pretty weird. I'm not kidding. Fortunately, working with SMEs is kind of different because certainly the very heavily technical SMEs I worked with are largely men, so it's kind of back in my comfort zone. But there was no doubt that being female meant that sometimes you were ignored, sometimes you didn't get promotion because everyone thought, oh, she can't be that technical. We need a guy because they're technical. So I had to be quite pushy. And I do think that being slightly maverick was kind of added to that challenge because women were expected to be kind of slightly more compliant. So me sticking my head up above the parapet kind of used to go, oh, God, no, it's Jackie again. The other challenge I found is moving from being a techie to a manager. Now, that is less of a problem now, but it's very, very easy if you're very technical, as I was, to get yourself pigeonholed into all she does is code, rather than actually she's quite good with people. We get her into the management stream. And I found it really hard. And I kind of resented for a while the fact that I actually had to go outside and do an MBA in order to get that message across. So tips. Network outside. Until I started working for myself, I did not know what networking was. I thought I did. But making connections with other people, sometimes people who you might not expect to be helpful, because it's very much a pay-it-forward thing, and that is making connections with people outside of your organisations. And I think that's particularly important if you work in a corporate, because it's very easy to kind of sit inside the bubble. The other tip is build influence inside. And I have to say, it's not something I was particularly good at. One of the challenges of being a bit maverick is that people kind of go, no, I don't want anything to do with her. She might be trouble. The other thing is get a mentor. I really wish I'd got a mentor sooner than I did. And even if all your mentor does is open your eyes to opportunities that you haven't thought about, that is a huge benefit. Plan more. It's particularly true if you're working for yourself. And I think it comes home to me particularly because I work with SMEs and most of them are really, really quite rubbish at planning. And don't give up. And I think that's already been mentioned several times, and that it's very easy to get despondent when you're the only woman in a department of guys doing technical stuff, or you haven't got a promotion and you're not sure whether it's because you're female or black or whatever it might be. Just don't give up. Persistence is really one of the things that will carry you through every time. Networks, I mentioned I'm an avid networker. I am vice chairman of the BCS Elite group. We're not elite. We encourage anyone who's interested in leadership and management and wants to see the IT profession really make a difference in business. I'm a member of CMI, which is the Chartered Management Institute. Management is my thing. Management in IT and how IT impacts management is actually really quite important for the future. I'm also an avid LinkedIn networker, and I'm happy to link to anyone here who'd like to connect to me. I use Twitter quite a lot. I get business through Twitter and LinkedIn, and Twitter is a challenge. I'm also a member of a specialist group, which is IBD, which is the Initiatives for Business Development. It's an SME consultants group, and I go to local groups as well, but I spend a lot of time networking. And I've probably vastly overrun my 10 minutes, haven't I, Dalim? So thank you.
Well done, Jackie. And the theme continues, and you can spot a lot of commonalities in terms of the encouragement that you're being given by various people, can't you? I hope we'll soon hear your comments and when we have the panel session in a few minutes' time. But the next person that I'm going to introduce you to is, again, absolutely a role model. I'm very much a fan of hers, and she too has done enormous things. You will probably see that as you hear her story, but she is now a partner in a top international law firm and an American international law firm at that. She's also an expert at something called GDQS. GDQS, anyone heard of that one? Something like that. And there's something called cybersecurity, which I think is to do with having an illuminated T-shirt, which she's also an expert in. Please join me in welcoming Deanne of Baker McKenzie.
Thanks very much, Dalim. Incredibly kind words, thank you. I'm Deanne Heward-Mills, and as Dalim mentioned, I'm a partner at law firm Baker McKenzie. So I head the data protection and cyber security practice group for the London office. And yes, GDPR is my life at the moment, to the point where I went away for a girly weekend last weekend, enjoyed the Friday evening, Saturday got excited about going for some shopping with girlfriends, and I had that text message on my phone. Deanne, sorry to disturb you at your weekend. We've just had a breach. Could you give me a call now? And that resulted in the next 48 hours advising on notifications to consumers, considering whether we needed to issue a holding statement to the Information Commissioner's office, considering what remediation we needed to implement within the organisation. That's pretty much kind of my life. But it's very exciting, and I feel very privileged to be working in an area that I am passionate about and really enjoy. So the organisation is Baker McKenzie. We're a global law firm. We've got offices in 77 jurisdictions. I think by footprint, we're probably the largest law firm. And I advise multinationals on very complex data issues. I was presenting this morning, and we were talking about the GDPR and how it's going to impact businesses, small and large. And someone used an analogy which I thought was very striking. They said data is the new oil and gas. It's going to power the 21st century. But we're all owners, right? And so it's important to just try and understand how it's going to be regulated and how we're going to play a part in that regulation. So very exciting to be at the sort of heart of all of that. And to think that, I started 17 or so years ago, and it was just literally quite by accident. I'd had my second child then, and I wanted to keep my toe in the law. So I decided to do a master's, and I literally had no idea of what master's I was going to do, so I was flicking through the prospectus. It could have been space law, but I landed on IP, and I happened to study data protection as part of that and loved it. And so here I am today. In terms of my sort of experience, I mentioned the master's, I completed that, and I also qualified as a barrister. 12 years ago, the unexpected happened to me. Very close to a cousin of mine, and she was a single mum and she had 3 children. And then she fell suddenly ill, and I thought she's obviously going to get better, but she didn't. She actually passed away. And it was just one of those moments where there was no provision for the children. I had 2 children myself. And I wanted to make a real positive out of what was a totally tragic situation. So I was qualifying as a barrister, had the 2 children, and thought, right, 3 children can come and live with me. We'll get some bunk beds in the room, and, it'll be fine. Of course it will. Didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. But it just actually, shows how you can adapt and you can be incredibly resourceful. I wouldn't share with you the look on my husband's face when I told him I was pregnant with our 3rd, which meant we were going from a family of 5 to one of 6. But, my youngest, who's now 11, was clearly meant to be. So actually, sometimes I'm asked, do you work full time? I have to say, I have no choice. I have 6 mouths to feed. Of course I work full time. And actually, because I was actually a consultant at the time, so I qualified as a barrister, and obviously with 3 of my own biological children, I sort of wanted to control my own sort of diary, and so I did some consulting, and then was headhunted to work at global law firm Linklaters, but this time internally. So I acted as effectively the global DPO, the data protection officer, at the time where that term was not very well known in the UK, actually. We're going to know a lot about DPOs. Have we got any DPOs in the room? Think about it. It's a license to print money. Anyway, we can have that conversation another time. So I worked as the DPO at Linklaters, and effectively what I was able to do was to put in place a sort of a governance structure around data within the law firm, and decided to apply for what's called binding corporate rules. It's a European standard where, as an organisation, you can demonstrate that you've got all the right policies and procedures in place. And at the time in the UK, not many organisations had this BCR standard. So actually, just being involved in that process meant I had sort of specialist knowledge, which was then very valuable to lots of organisations. So I was headhunted to go and lead the privacy programme at GE Capital following that experience. And what I did at GE Capital, global organisation, conglomerate, obviously GE, but within the financial services business, highly regulated, very involved in data breach management, AML, know your client, know your customer, how that conflicts with data protection laws, advising on direct marketing, cloud computing. So really immersing myself in some very, very cutting edge issues, which again, incredibly satisfying. So given that story and that background, in terms of what are my challenges, obviously work-life balance is a challenge at times, and it's important to always try to achieve that. And it can be done in lots of different ways. I've actually been sort of quite creative about work-life balance. So one of the things I feel passionate about is gender diversity, ethnic diversity, social mobility. And so one of the things I negotiated when I started at Baker McKenzie was to be allowed to develop some corporate social responsibility programs. So I said, it's going to be hugely important for me that whilst I'm here, it's not just about the billable hour. I know that's incredibly important for a law firm, but in order for me to maintain my work-life balance, I want to be involved in corporate social responsibility. And actually, I came up with a very creative idea of ensuring that that program was in keeping with my areas of passion. So I developed what's called a Cyber-Ready Girls' Day. You can Google it. And effectively, what that program is about is encouraging girls, especially girls from socially deprived areas, into coding. And just exposing them to the idea that coding is a thing that's a very valuable skill to have in the 21st century, so they can play their part, whether they decide to become doctors, architects, artists, whatever it is. We create actually digitally. So if they can learn to do that, then that would stand them in good stead. And it also meant that actually encouraging more diversity within IT. We've had some incredible women speak today about their roles in IT. We need more women in IT. We need greater ethnic diversity within IT. So that's again some of the challenges. It's not having sort of women around me in the fields that I'm working in, and not having sufficient ethnic diversity around me in the fields that I'm working in. What are the opportunities? Well, this is an incredibly dynamic area. So, working in the area of data protection and cybersecurity, it's changing so much. You've got European legislation, you've got new laws emerging across the world, in Asia and the US. It's a huge growth area. I had a passion for human rights as a young student, and I remember one of my lecturers saying, well, Deanne, if you want to be, academic in a dusty room, poring over books, then do human rights law. But actually, how about making or using that in a commercial way, making your career a bit more commercial? And actually, data protection allows just that, because it is ultimately about the protection of information relating to individuals as a fundamental human right. It's about building trust of consumers and employees. So combining the two. And as I mentioned, data and technology, of course, is the future. So the huge opportunities. So what are my tips? I heard this phrase, be passionate in your pursuit of short-term goals. And there's a lot of value in that, I think, because you can have this sort of big dream that is sort of unachievable in many ways. But actually, if you can achieve short-term goals, I think that's very satisfying. It's about being courageous and being brave, trying new things, as was said earlier, and seizing opportunities when they come your way. It's about having balance and perspective also. And there's nothing like, a tragic incident to make you realize that some of the things that you perhaps worry about are not quite so important, ultimately, when you have a bit of perspective on situations. And it's also about knowing your worth. It's about knowing what you're bringing to the table also, as well as knowing the worth of others. I feel incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by very talented individuals. And what I choose to focus on in my work is what they are good at. I think sometimes as lawyers, you always want to pick fault. You want to find what's wrong with that contract. You're always looking for things that are wrong, but you've got to sort of change that mentality when it comes to people. Focus on what people do right and encourage that in them. And I think also a lesson from my mother, actually, is having some humility and also being very grateful, having a sense of gratitude for all the things that you have. Networking, well, that's incredibly important. And so I am very involved in the Baker ethnicity strand at work. And of course, the corporate social responsibility program that I've established there as well. I've interacted with so many people through it in a really positive and constructive way. And of course, the Chartered Institute of IT. Whenever I come to events like this, I always connect with new people and form new friendships. And I'm really looking forward to doing that also this evening. Thank you.
What a great encouragement to all of us who are not yet BCS members. How can that be? So do have a look at that form on the back of one of your sheets, fill it in, and give it to me at the end of this. Well, we've heard a lot about inspiring people, and I'm going to introduce you to our final speaker, who is very much an inspiration to numerous people and has been spreading the good word in terms of diversity, challenge, all sorts of good motivational things through the city and elsewhere. Please read about Cheryl on your sheets and join me in welcoming Cheryl Martin.
Thank you. What can I say? Inspirational and absolutely fantastic. I don't quite know what to say after all of that because my story is similar to many that you've heard going forward. So I'm going to try not to layer as we look at that. But what do? I'm a partner for EY. I run, a bit of a similar theme coming here, I run our cybersecurity and GDPR team across the whole of EMEA. A very quiet role, just as you've heard from Deanne. We have nothing going on. It's very quiet. We're sat there, we've got our feet up, we're doing nothing. So anyone that tells you they've got loads going on, they're lying. So I have the great delight to actually work across a number of our clients and in multiple jurisdictions, so very much like Deanne as well, looking at how the GDPR is going to change, looking at how it's going to influence the way that we continue to do business. We've been very used to gathering data. We've heard of stories before we had no data and we had no technology. We've now got oodles of it in our data lakes and our Hadoop loops and various other things where we're mining that data. And then many of us go, uh-oh, there's this thing called GDPR and don't quite know what we can do with it anymore. Oh, now I know who I can ask. I've got a lawyer on hand, which is fantastic. So yes, I spend a lot of time with our teams in EY. I am absolutely delighted to be leading our Women in Technology Network. We've just won a couple of awards as well. So we look at and we sponsor from the women who are looking, girls that can code, and making sure that, in fact, everyone, male and females, have an opportunity to look at technology they may not be actually seeing in their daily life. We run Java boot camps, we run scripting work. We have as many men in there as we have women all going, oh, so good. Everyone keeps telling me this Java stuff's marvellous, but I've never had a chance to work with it. So we are oversubscribed with the work that we're doing. We're rolling it out now across EMEA with virtual boot camps. And yes, technology is alive in a very boring, fusty old accountants. We are winning prizes, we're winning awards, we're working with new things like blockchain and various other things. We are changing those boundaries. I've just come this evening from a session with a number of students where we had AI, interaction, robots, and all of those good things that tell us by the year 2020 there'll be 50 million jobs that will be newly created. But I also coach and mentor. I spend a lot of time doing coaching and mentoring. I have 2 children. I have no idea how you manage with 6. I've got 2. They're quite enough. Thank you very much. Managed to ship one of those across to the other side of Australia, costing me an arm and a leg, but at least the house is tidy. And like so many people who are probably in this sandwich age, the sandwich generation as we are, I have my mother to look after, who seems to be the big enough child. I'm sure your 6 all put together couldn't give you half of the challenges that I have with my mother, but that's another story, and we can do that over drinks. So yes, similar story to most people, a very challenging environment that we work in. Everything is changing very quickly. There's a lot that's going on in our environment and a lot we're having to keep up with. We've heard already this evening some of those challenges from people from where they were. So this is now. And when I was looking at the brief from Dalim, I thought, where do I start? I'm going to go right back to the beginning. So right back to when I started to work, when I came in as a graduate trainee into NatWest, no technology. Hadn't even heard of technology in the bank. So, very much recognising that, going in and printing checkbooks. At the event I was in earlier, all bright young things, all marvellous. I said, how many of you last wrote a cheque? Raise your hands. Silence. You could have heard the tumbleweed going across. And they went, what's a cheque? So I'm saying, well, look, I used to print checkbooks. We talked about anti-money laundering and all of those good things just now. You could walk in with the best man in the branch and go, I really think you're marvellous. Would you like a bank account? Absolutely. And you got a bank account before you knew it. And you walked out with a checkbook. There was none of this anti-money laundering, bribery, corruption, or the 7,000 forms that we need to fill out with a letter from our grandmother that tells us that we are who we say we are. So times have moved on. It's improved, apparently. So customer reviews, working on, and I particularly put this in here, working in NatWest Bank in Euston Road and also in Oxford Street. And yes, my bank has become a coffee shop, both of them. So yeah, we've seen times change. We have seen technology move in a pace. We've seen capabilities move in a pace. But it's really exciting. No day is the same, no matter how many breaches you may have. They may be different breaches. But technology surprises us. What can we do? I've left the teams this evening, some of our new technologists, discover how we as a fusty old accountancy firm are helping people grow lettuces underneath Old Street Station. We are working with the space technology going to Mars. We have some fantastic capabilities within our fusty old accountancy. We are even bringing robotics and analytics to some of those very boring things. But those are the things that make life really exciting. And those are the things that allow us to challenge ourselves and to continue to look. So that brought me on to the challenges that I had back in the old days of NatWest. So I recognise some of those sentiments, I think are the words we would use, from the rest of the panellists on career guidance. There was none. You sort of found this ethereal thing. Well, you're leaving school now, or you're leaving university. Congratulations, well done. No idea, no plans. So fantastic to be able to give those coming through the opportunities. I wish I'd had my time again with a number of degrees and opportunities I could work into. For me, banking was very much a male-dominated industry. Some of the sectors I work with as well, still very much a male-dominated industry. I work in the insurance sector quite a lot. But then I've cut my teeth in telecoms, in technology, where unlike the FI team, very few women. I worked in telco. I was very used to not having an engineer to sort out my microwave dish issues, and very used to getting those spanners, but excitingly running the cables that created the World Wide Web that we know today and the resilience that we have in telco. So being a woman and being given opportunities never stopped me. And those are the things which I want to leave as part of my legacy. Having no technology at that time, we didn't know any different. It was great. We never fell out with someone. And if we did, we never spoke to them overnight. We saw them the next day and everything was all repaired. None of that cyber bloggy stuff that keeps... No issue. I know you're a brilliant blogger, but sometimes that's that always on, isn't it? But what opportunities do we have? fantastic opportunities, cutting edge of technology, the opportunity to try things, to look at coding in various different ways, and to continue to look with awe as things developed. For me, I didn't go to university. I went and worked in the bank and I got paid. It was marvellous. All my friends go, I've got no money, don't know what to do. I'm going, oh, that's fine, I've got a paycheck coming in. Lovely. So, again, apprenticeships is a great way for everyone to start to look at and to learn. And we've heard stories about the Open University and the support that has for us. Just an amazing way to continue with that education, never stopping with that wonder as well of what it means. So I enjoyed the developments of technology within banking. I absolutely loved the developments of technology within telco and how things moved, and I love it now today. The things that we are seeing today, the things that we are experiencing, the new technology that's going to come in and the new capabilities that are going to come in allows us to really, really move forward. So what are my tips? So, never be afraid of asking questions. Because if you don't know it, chances are someone else sat around the table doesn't know it either. But never be afraid of that. And never be afraid for asking to volunteer. Chloe will tell you she has to sit through a number of my very boring speeches at the office. And she'll tell you that I will tell people time and time again, always go with an open mind and look at what you can discover from something. Great questions that came out about understanding the differences and the benefits of both a coach and a mentor and what they can provide to you. I'm very similar to the sentiments that were said earlier. I didn't discover until very, very later on in my career what the advantages were of a coach and the differences between a coach and a mentor and what they could do for you. Look at those who inspire you, whether it be at work, outside of work or anywhere. But look at what they do. Look at what they emanate. Look at the sort of legacy that they are leaving and ask, what would you do? How would you be? What would you want to do if you were in that position? Be authentic and be yourself. You really don't need to be anyone other than you are. You are who you are, and you're wonderful, and you have great capabilities. So be authentic. And always ask questions. There was no surprise in putting that in twice. I think sometimes we're often frightened or afraid. We just don't ask those questions. So my networks, again, like the other networks that you've heard from the panelists, incredibly important. Formal ones, LinkedIn, Twitter. I sit on and I'm responsible both in EY and external to EY in a number of women in technology capabilities, women in security, women on boards. I'm passionate about diversity and inclusiveness because that's what we are as a generation, and we need to reflect all of that. And I also look at networks for people who inspire me. So the FI Institute, Dame Stephanie Shirley is definitely someone who inspires me. If only I could look at leaving a sort of legacy that she has, then I will have done something that I want to do along the step of the way. So really find those women and find why they inspire you. And do you know what? When you go up and talk to them, they'll be absolutely amazed as to why you find they inspire you, and also prepared to support you. So, Dalem, I'm going to hand over to you.
Now we're at the point of having the part which I've called All Together Now. Let me see if I can just bring this up quickly. And the All Together Now is where we have a panel session. So please prepare your questions because I'm going to ask you in just a moment. So here's what we've prepared. Just in case you have no questions at all, I know that Cheryl is happy to lead a focus topic, if you will, getting to the boardroom. How do you get to that top spot? Deanne, her focus could be diversity in corporates. Jackie, of course, diversity in SMEs, and so on. There are lots of capabilities we've got here. But I'm hoping that you will have some questions to challenge our speakers. Who has a question?
Because I'm a digital granny, I used to diagnose software at CERN in Geneva among the 12% of women in STEM. But I recently met Professor Lenore Bloom at the Turing Institute. She got 50-50 at the Carnegie Mellon University, not by changing the curriculum, but by giving more support to the girls at the university. And that was a surprise to me. I didn't expect that. I have invented, by revisiting mathematics through the eyes of a mature programmer, ways of making Excel spreadsheets sexy, colorful, beautiful. Now, I'm looking for women to help me promote that, because in my experience, and I say that with apologies to all of the men in the world in this room here now, there are too many men who are intellectually jealous. They suffer from the not invented here syndrome. I am... Oh, that's really nice. Thank you. But that's if that would have been in my challenges box. But right now, therefore, I also want to make data sexy rather than software and coding, and open data. And I want to bring a field of visual data science into the world. So I'm looking for you as allies, hopefully, and wonder whether you can infiltrate the big boys' systems with sexy technology.
I agree, and but Deanne and I are just going GDPR, open data, sexy. Yeah, we're going, oh my God, but we'll get there. Jade.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I do, business intelligence and analytics, so making boring spreadsheets look amazing. You can have them pink if you want them and sparkly, what I say. So I would definitely be interested, because I sit in front of many directors, I sit on boards, I present to boards, and I'll say, give me that Excel spreadsheet, let me plug it into a dashboard and show you what I can do without, going through rows and rows of data, because I'm a very visual person. So if you show me an Excel spreadsheet, it'll glaze over. If you show me data that I can drill down into and start to analyse, and then I'm going to remember what you're saying. So definitely interested in that.
Excellent. Anything else from the rest of the panellists? Yeah, we know we have to keep it simple for the board members because they've got limited limited knowledge and span was what I was looking for. Yeah, over there.
Can you hear me? Yeah, so my question is around the retention of women. So, yes, we talk about STEM, right? So I've worked in IT for 20 years and I work in BI. And I know what it is, the challenges that I faced when I first started. You go in the room and they think that you're there as an assistant. Sometimes to make coffee, yes. I've had all the things, take a note, sexist comments, whatever. But I know like now they talk about STEM helping young women, focus through from school, university and so forth. But then what I've noticed, especially in the area that I work in, is that you get women dropping out halfway through. And one of the problems I think we've got problems that young girls don't want to take up STEM courses, but then also you've got a problem where people get to like mid-career and drop out, because there are women that are, at a senior level, but there's far and few, and even when you do get women on the board, they're not the technical roles, they are the people skills, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of imbalanced. Yeah, so for me, it's like, how do you address the women in the mid-career?
So challenges on that retention, challenges on some of the things you've touched on, where we've given our stories of some of our challenges. But what do we do to inspire women? It won't help you to know that. Just recently, the World Economic Forum have just said it's going to take an extra 47 years. So 217 years for us to get pay parity. So, that's not helping. But also, what do we do to make it easier? I'm going to hand the first answer over to you as a woman who's challenged with a lot more children than I could ever manage with at home. So, what can we do as role models, as inspiration to help those coming behind us?
So I think the important thing is around transparency. And I think it's very important that pay is published and is known, because I think there's a lot of short-changing that happens when you actually don't know. You don't know what your colleagues who are doing perhaps less than you are earning in comparison to you. And I was, given a sort of very good tip, actually, in terms of negotiating. So firstly, just it goes back to the point that I made when I was speaking, understanding your worth, understanding your value, and actually, as a woman, standing in your power when you ask for pay or a pay rise, because I think often we are very reluctant to do that. So let's be courageous and let's be transparent.
Anything from anyone else?
One of my clients until very recently was the Women in Engineering Society, and I ran their mentoring program for them. And one of the things that they found extremely helpful, particularly for women who were taking time out, was having a mentor whilst they were out. Because one of the big challenges, I think, particularly for women in technical roles, is that technology moves on. And if you don't get training or you're not able to stay up to date, it's actually very difficult to come back into the workforce. And we are losing a lot of women who just go out to have their families and then find it just too difficult to come back. So mentor helps.
Thank you. And that's actually one of the reasons why we launched our boot camps. It was to give an equal level playing field for anyone, not only women returning, but also fathers sometimes just find they haven't got the time to do that. I think the other question, just to lead on from you, is asking your firm what legacy will they leave? What legacy will that boardroom leave? And what is it that they're looking for as leaders? Sometimes it is quite difficult for the leaders to take time out and to think about that. This is our job to highlight no women in a room. This is our job to highlight, what are we seeing with the attrition? And it's our job to ask them to see what they're going to do to fix it. Because we have seen the difference that, a diverse and inclusive environment. We've seen the difference of being able to give those opportunities for everyone throughout their career and to make, Excel spreadsheets sexy. Any other questions? Yes.
So I'm quite new to IT, actually. So, so I've actually only really been doing it for about 3 years. So yeah. So I'm currently also doing a degree with it. But one of the things that I've been doing recently is, and my manager's just there. But I've been looking at. She knows I'm leaving the company I'm currently with. But I've been doing job interviews. So I've been at a few job interviews, and what kind of surprised me is. Obviously I'm quite entry level. One of the places that I went to a job interview for, and I haven't really been to that many, they asked me the question when I was there of, just by the way, one thing, there's a lot of men, it's mainly men here. How are you going to be okay with that? And that was one of the questions that I had. And also other things is, what was your answer? I said, I've already worked in IT for 3 years. I'm already doing it. But this is kind of the question that I'm getting onto, because I'm also currently doing a CCNA course, which has day schools, because I'm doing it for the OU. So I know someone said I think someone did something with the OU. OU's good. And when I went into, which is a thing that they all heard because I ranted about it when I came into the office the Monday after the school, is that I was the only girl there out of about 60 people. And in fact, because it was done at a school, and as I walked in, they went, yes, come with us, we'll take you to the class. And they led me, and I was only 23, I'm 24 now, but I'm 23. They led me to the prenatal class. And I just kind of looked at the quite pregnant women in there and went, I think I'm in the wrong room. But what would you say would be the best and most constructive way of confronting these people when they do these things, when they say these things, and not getting the best way to kind of put emotion aside and actually try and give constructive feedback on how they've reacted to you?
Constructive feedback. So I'm going to throw it open first off, before we answer your question, to the audience, and I'm going to throw open 2 questions. I'm going to throw the first one out to the women. And women, how many times have you sat in an office or a meeting and you've been the only woman? Okay, so you're not alone. You're not alone. Men, how many times have you sat in a meeting when you've been the only man? 1. Fantastic. Now, please don't say it was a meeting on your own, because then I'm hoping that you were well with lots of other females. Fantastic. Brilliant. You're an enlightenment, so you now know sometimes how it feels, which is great. But to your point, you are not the only person who's only ever been in and working with men. It's just difficult when you're caught off guard with a question like that. The rest of the panelists and I myself, we're used to, and we've been in those situations. I thought it actually was quite good when I worked in the telcos and we were out busy building networks, and all of a sudden the bloke swore and went, "Oh, blood," or whatever that word was, beep, beep, beep. And he went, "It doesn't matter, you're part of the boys." I went, "Oh, okay, if I'm part of the boys, that's fine then, is it?" And that is a socially accepted thing that they've taken you on board. My advice to you, be yourself, be authentic. You are who you are. And you will fit in, and you're not alone in being the only person sometimes working with men. Any advice from anyone else on the panelist? Joy?
I would say, fortunately, I've only worked with guys. So I say, yes, you feel free to stand out, because you will stand out. And you should stand out not just for being a female, but stand out because you have very different personality or your skill sets, and yeah, be who you are. I mean, for me, I'm totally comfortable. I've never had to work with all women, so it feels like it's normal. So if someone asks me the question, are you okay working with guys? My question would be, what is the problem with that? So I guess it is normal.
Going on from your point about, you've worked in places where, or been in meetings with guys. I'm a returner after 2 years out of IT. I think it's having confidence and the ability to just throw yourself in. And I'd like to ask the panel about how do we build confidence in the younger generations who are used to interacting in a more IT, social media way, in a face-to-face way, because you talked about blogging and Twitter and these online activities. I'm quite old now, so I'm used to actually talking to people face-to-face, but the younger generations may not be. So women in IT having the confidence to be able to stand up to people and having that ability to face these challenges, how do you think we can overcome that in the digital world?
Digital? Face to face. Isn't that really a bit old technology? So, no. And I think you're right. The workforce that we have is quite diverse. We've got people who do prefer face to face and who wouldn't. It's great to actually look at someone face to face. I question some people when they say, "Oh, I've spoken to them." Well, how did you speak to them? I sent them an email. I sent them a text. Did they answer? No, not yet, but I've spoken to them. So, yeah, looking at those challenges, absolutely. And I remember, and Deanne and the rest of us, I remember when I came back from my first maternity leave and thought I'd died and gone to a very different parallel universe. So yes, you're not alone. Technology does move on, but you're recognizing that everyone does things in very different ways. Doesn't necessarily mean the digital's there. We all listen to things and we all respond to things in different ways, and face-to-face or sexy Excel spreadsheets are the things that work, but really encouraging that multifaceted communication.
So, being young, I'm 25. Twitter, never had it before. Still not got Instagram. I only have Twitter through work. LinkedIn, blogging. Yeah, if I've got time, but I compete on horses outside of work, so they normally take up every single evening and all my weekends. So I'm a people person, and I found out that in my job, I build relationships a lot faster if I'm just going to see somebody put the kettle on, get the biscuits out, and let's have a conversation about how we can work together. And I think, you know, I don't like to hide behind an email. I like to see somebody's facial expressions, and I connect a lot more by sitting in front of someone. So Twitter's just for work purposes.
So at least you got Skype and mobile Skype now, so you can see them if you can't be there. Panelists, yeah?
Actually, for me, also the digital world, it's pretty important because it's a good way to keep up relationships and to continuously build up relationships if you're just not around. But I do think the right combination is important. So, for example, just instead of writing an email, pick up the phone and call. If you have a meeting, ask them if they can, for example, join a hangout where you also have a video. And really, then they, for example, also they can't hide doing something different while you talk to them, like you see their face. So it's really I do think it's important. I see myself sometimes if I'm on a call, for example, I eat next to it or I do something else because the other person doesn't see it. So if you just force really to get the full attention of the other person, and also really, on the other hand, really for me, it's also important that I know, okay, I make it worth his time. So I ask questions. What does he want to know? How can I best structure the meeting? How much time does he have? And then really to make just the best out of the time, but there really to get the full attention.
Yeah, one of the challenges I have with working with SMEs is that I don't just work with SMEs in the UK. I also work with SMEs around the world. I am a big fan of Skype video and Zoom. But the challenge is that I generally have to kind of work with a package of different ones, different medium. I do prefer face-to-face, like I think a lot of us do. Sometimes it isn't possible, and I think having additional technology options does make life easier, because otherwise I might actually have to drive to Scotland to see somebody, whereas I can mentor them over Zoom, and it's just like being in the same room. But it does actually open up more opportunities. But face-to-face is best, yes.
So I'm really disappointed now. I thought everyone listened to all my voice calls and paid 100% attention to me. So only if I face-to-face, otherwise you'll be eating or doing emails. I know. Yeah. So I'm going to hand it back over to Joyce. Perhaps she'll make us feel a bit more enlightened.
I think you're right. There is a challenge where you're currently used to speaking to people over different, maybe Facebook and all of that. I think if you're joining a new team, it would be a good thing to ask for a team bonding kind of events, so people can get to understand who they work with. And for me, I work with, my team is global, so we do meet once a year. And I know people by their names, but I've never seen them. So when I get an opportunity to meet them, sometimes I say, oh, now it's nice to actually put a face to the name that I already know. So I think it's great to have those team bonding meetings or have events that can bring you together to meet people, not just over social media. And yes, social media is great. It has its own benefit, but we want to have a kind of balanced skill set where you can communicate with people over media and face-to-face, because it is important. Because you need to understand how people react, people's expression, and how they do things, if they like the way you work. Because emails doesn't tell a lot about the person you're talking to. So maybe you can get together and do something, and then you find out you're more alike than you even know.
Am I allowed to give a plug for my book here? I've written a book about this called Together Works, where we've got lots and lots of tips about how to do e-collaboration across company and country boundaries. But you're absolutely right, it isn't the same, and you do have to do additional things with social media and online stuff than you do face-to-face.
Right, last call. Any other questions?
Thank you. I'm Beverly Clark. I'm an author and a former secondary school teacher. I did a talk in this very building just a couple of hours ago for the launch of my book entitled Computer Science Teacher, which is aimed at getting career changes into teaching computing science. Anyone with an interest in computer science. It does address some of the issues around diversity and inclusion and getting girls into IT. So I found the conversation very interesting tonight. Thank you.
Any other burning questions? Or do I see, oh, there's one more. There's one more. Last.minute.com.
My name is Moby and I work with Computer Center. For 10 years, I've worked in media, so I've just come into IT for the last 1 year. And the good thing is I work with 25 guys, so I'm the only woman on the team. And just because they're all third liners, when I first joined, I used to stumble a lot because they always expect me to know everything about IT. So what I've had to do, sometimes I want to give up, but sometimes I'm like, okay, you know what? You're here for a purpose. And because you're in a new role, you have to learn this. So what I've had to do is after we have meetings, I go back into the documentations and pick up notes, pick up IT knowledge, words, slogans, or just trying to pick up what they're talking about and have team events. But still, I have some members of my team, because I'm 25 guys, some of them still make things very difficult, yeah? And I want to, like, okay, just leave the team. How do I keep going?
See, I've been in those situations where things have been very challenging and have been very tough. But actually, what I've found is actually the most difficult situations is where I've done the most growth. And so, again, it's about that sort of perspective. You look back and you think, oh, that seemed impossible. But actually going through it kind of builds your resilience. But then ultimately, sometimes you do have to move on and should move on. So, I was told once by a boss, don't try and do my job, you will fail. So I didn't do his job. I did a job 2 rungs above him. So
perfect example this afternoon. A guy who owned his own business, been there, done it, had built this amazing software product, and now he was working for a company and somehow magically sold his business. And after telling him really good ideas about how to profile his customers and how to engage in those conversations to talk about BI and analytics, what regression modeling is, I learned a new thing last month. And he obviously found it very difficult to understand that I probably knew more than what he was talking about. He did challenge me a few points in front of my boss. My reply was, well, what do you know? You tell me about regression modeling. He went, I don't know. You tell me. So, after licking his wounds, he did abruptly call a halt to the meeting. Didn't feel like it was professional enough to shake my hand and say bye. I said, I'll follow up on that regression and modelling and my ideas. I'll drop you an email tomorrow morning. So, sometimes I think it's just about being professionally persistent, but making sure that when someone does challenge you, I always follow up with ideas on how to move forward, working together. Sometimes men that look like maybe they're in their 60s don't want to listen to somebody that's in their 20s. But he had to, because he had no choice. He had 2 hours with us.
For me, I think I had just that moment when I started my job, my current job. So I started a new role. I know nothing about advertising. And I knew nothing about the platform that we're using. And one person has just gone on holiday. So I had one guy left, another guy who didn't talk much, and I didn't talk much either. But I had a challenge in front of me. I needed to learn as fast as possible to be able to support the rest of the team. And I had 2 weeks of talking to no one. I had my headphones on because it's the only way I can get the kind of concentration that I needed. But it was an opportunity for me to learn before the next person comes. So I'd say grab the opportunity while you can and don't be afraid to say you don't know because, yeah, of course, knowledge is not something that everyone has monotony over. So take the challenge and learn. I mean, after that while, I mean, you can look back and say, oh, well, I did it. And I think I was happy enough to say in 2 weeks, I learned much more than I would have done in 3 months if I had everyone just being more patronizing. So I guess just stick on and just stay resilient, I would say. 'Cause it's the only way forward.
So, and don't forget your network. Really, really don't forget, in those times of trouble, whether you've got a mentor, a coach, or someone that you can just talk to, your network is really fundamentally important to you as an individual. For those of us who've all had children, we know they don't come with a manual. There's no manual when that child's born. Wish there was. I would have pressed the reset button on my firstborn, perhaps a couple of times. But there you go. It's the same in a job. You may have a job role, but sometimes there's not a manual. There's not a playbook. There's not a thing that you're supposed to do. And technology is changing. When you have your firstborn, you have this wonderful, wonderful network of first-time mothers who go, oh, mine cried all night. Oh, mine did too. Is he eating? No. Is he walking? Not yet, no. Or yes, God, he walked at 10 months. Oh my God. You sit there and you take those challenges of something that's common. The weather, it's raining, it's hot, it's cold. We have those conversations about what's challenging us, what's similar. It's the same in some of those challenges that you've got. Ask questions, look at your network, use your mentor, use your coach, and look and see what's there. There is a huge amount of support for everyone. The statistics which we've thrown out this evening about boardrooms and concrete ceilings or glass ceilings, depending whether you're a glass half empty or a glass half full, they're there. But you are enlightened. You are the guys who recognize when you're in a meeting now and go, whew, there's no women. That's a bit strange. We need to change that balance. That's what we can only ask for, is that you're here and you're an advocate as well. Dalem, thank you very much for everything. Audience, thank you for your participation. Panellists, thank you so much for your inspiring stories.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm kind of blown away, but I have to close the event, as it were. So let me do that by referring you to some of your bits of paper. Sorry, it's not digital. But the one I'm going to refer you to is the one that looks like a form and tells you about the ISARCA London event on Thursday, 7th of December, right here. It's going to be fun. Do come and enjoy this bit of pre-Christmas, risk-based fun with food and drink. Also, if you're interested in joining BCS, and of course you are if you're not a member already, fill in the box in the middle and give that back to me. Likewise, if you'd like to learn more and help us at North London branch in the things that we do, then please fill in the bottom box and return to me. I would like you to join me in thanking my NLB, North London branch team, and also the other super BCS groups who have been part of this event and are around you to network with in a different way as well. So thank you very much, NLB and BCS. And finally, another of these bits of paper. It says, fly high, building a bank from scratch. Or you could take it as a follow-up to this event, because the speaker of this is actually, it's Anne Bowden, who's the CEO of Starling Bank. Now, who's heard her tweeting about any of this? Anybody? No, who's heard of Starling Bank? Yeah? Great, a few people. Well, you deserve to know more. This event will actually be at Starling Bank, which is Finsbury Square. Finsbury Avenue. I think it is Finsbury Square, but Finsbury something anyway, in the City of London. And Anne has got quite a story to tell from the time when she worked for large corporates and thought, surely banking ought to be simpler than this. So she had the aspiration, the view, that a bank should be built from the ground up. And she's done something about it. A very inspiring story. So come and join us there. Finally, I'd like to invite Gabrielle to... What's all that stuff on your lap? Come and give it to me. We have something for our speakers. Thank you very much, my wife Gabrielle. I would like to share with all of you, now just to show how useless I am, I'm going to say, God, I don't know who this one's for. I'm going to invite you to take a look, Chloe, to see who that's for. And give it to them.
It's a real family affair,
Right.
isn't it?
It is really. And this one says, it's for Jack. Who's Jack?
Jade.
There you are. You see how much we rely on women here. This one's for Cheryl Martin. I don't know who.
No idea either. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This one is for Chloe. Oh, I know her. There we are. That's for you. Here's one which is called Computer Science Teacher. So you see, your books are flying off the shelf already. This one's going to Jackie. And then there's one here called The Human Touch. Doesn't seem right in an IT environment, does it? But this is for Jade. Working the crowd. Well, I wonder who knows a lot about that. Well, I think you probably do too. It's Julia. And finally, for somebody who clearly needs to know more about, real IT, to our top lawyer, Deanne, cybersecurity, a practitioner's guide. Enjoy. Enjoy. Thank you very much. It's for Joy. NLP for project managers. Now I'm a bit worried. I wonder why she wants this. Well done. Good. So, thank you very much. It's been a long evening. Thank you very much for sitting through it. Did you enjoy it? Yes. Yeah? Great. Okay. Some food and drink, lots of networking. Enjoy. Thank you.